We never know. We don't know what happens. So, why? Why this story? Why does Jesus tell it this way? What is he trying to get at? What's going on? I think this is the best story in the whole Bible. I'm just going to go there with that. Okay? I love it. A couple things I think he's doing. First of all, we've already alluded to this. He's giving a radical image of God. He's saying that God is a radically loving and pursuing Father. Radical. He's redefining him. He's redefining this image of Father. And, you know, I do think I think for some of us, when we have the issue with this idea of Father, it's based on our individual experiences. And, you know, I think Jesus, by kind of making it this radical and showing, like, this is so different than any father, I think he is saying, you know, I know you've had fathers in a certain way, but my Father isn't like that. I know you would expect this Father to do certain things, but my Father isn't like that. I know you would expect that these sons should get things that they deserve, but my Father isn't like that. It's clear he's trying to get the message, like, my Father isn't what you think he is. You have such a warped view of Father because our society has a warped view of Father. But let me tell you, let me define what Father really is. This is how my Father is. He's compassionate, emotionally abandoned, generous, faithful, even in the face of rejection kind of Father. For how great and powerful and majestic he is, he's also all of these things we see in this passage. He's loving. He's willing to be humiliated. He's willing to suffer. He's longing to show love and for you to be with him. So Jesus shows that God is a radically loving and pursuing Father. Both sons are outside the house, and the Father goes to both of them. Second, I think Jesus redefines sin. Now, let me explain this. Sin is like a word that's abused. I mean, I've seen it like where people are like on street corners yelling, "You're a sinner," and you're like, "You're crazy." Maybe you're not, but I am. That's my judgmental side. But anyways, so basically sin was just like a term that they used of like missing the mark. If you were like gonna like shoot an arrow at a target, and if you got off the target, you were like, sin. Okay, that was like the term. It became this really religious, like deep term, but that was it. So it was basically like you missed the mark, you've sinned. Okay? So, but I think he redefines sin with these two sons. You know, the younger son, let me explain. The younger son is the free spirit, doing what he wants, living life on his own terms, controlling his own destiny, asking for what he wants, even if it hurts people. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm going to live my life. This is what's going to make me happy, and I need this, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go for it. But, you know, he's kind of the traditional idea of sinner, right? Like somebody who's like squandering his money on prostitutes. And actually, Jesus kind of uses him in this context, right? Who's here in the beginning? There's these sinner people that they're like, how are you like friends with them and calling them old friends? And then there's these religious people. He kind of uses the younger son to relate to them and being like, all of us would say that this son did some pretty bad things. All of us would probably agree. He did some bad things. He's the bad son. He asked for the inheritance. He squandered it. You know, he wasn't good. You know, the older son, though, he would have been like, the religious people would have been like, yeah, we like him. He never disobeyed his father. He actually, he doesn't have a sin list. He doesn't have things that he's done wrong. Actually, he works hard. He makes sure that he is very good, and he obeys, and he's careful to not do anything wrong. But here's the kicker. When you get to the end of the story, here's what you're left with. One son is rebellious. One son is religious. One son is doing bad things, one son is doing good things, but they are both alienated from God. They're both apart from the Father's heart. One of them is separated because he has intentionally disobeyed and done bad things, and the other is separated not because of his badness, but because of his goodness. And what I mean by that is he has managed his life in certain ways that he actually has deluded himself to believe it is all up to me. I've done it all. I don't need anyone else. It's just up to me. And for that reason, I can judge whoever I want. Because everyone is worse off than I am. I'm the good son. But he's separated because of his goodness. One is very, very bad. One is very, very good. But they are both lost. They are both in need of something bigger than themselves. Tim Keller is one of my favorite preachers, and he puts it like this. Each one of these sons wanted the father's things, but not the father. Each one of them used the father to get what they really loved. They didn't love the father. They used the father to get what they really loved. The status, the wealth, the happiness, the fulfillment. The way of life that they thought that they should have. But they did it two different ways. One of them did it by being very bad, and one of them did it by being very, very good. You know, what he's really saying is the reality for us in this room, as we look at these two sons, maybe you think that they're extreme versions. But the reality is all of us fit on the spectrum on one side or the other. And you know, when we feel disconnected from God, which all of us do, whether you call yourself a follower of Jesus in this room right now or not, when you feel like, you know, I'm not connecting with God or something's not clicking with my life, it's not God's fault. That's the reality we all need to deal with. That's why Jesus shows this father. It wasn't the father's fault that they were outside the house. It was theirs. God never created us to feel distant from him. He always wanted us with him, close to him, being loved by him, but each in our own ways have decided we would rather do our own thing, go our own way. Whether that was making it sure that we didn't have a sin list, so we didn't really need God, or whether it was like, who cares if I have a sin list? I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to act like God doesn't even really exist. You know, what's interesting about the younger son, when he says, I don't think a lot of us would be so aware that we actually say, oh, God, I'm basically saying I wish you were dead. But a lot of us ignore that he exists. A lot of us live our lives just kind of acting like God doesn't really exist. He's kind of an accessory. I want to pick him up and put him on. Maybe I will today. Or maybe he doesn't go with this outfit. Some of us kind of don't even know that much about God, and we're like here, and we're like, if he's real, then maybe I do need to figure this out. And you know what? That is awesome, but the reality is, up until this point, you have been living your life in a distant country, doing your own thing. The older son in the room, right? Maybe you relate to it because you're like, I'm trying to do all the right things, but I still feel so far away from God. I'm trying to show him that I care. I'm trying to do all the right ministry things. I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying to serve, fill in the blank, whatever it is. But you're not getting what you want. That's how the older son was. I'm doing all these things, but I'm not getting what I want. The reason this story is so radical to the listeners of the day is that everyone listening to this story would have said the father has every right to disown both of these sons for what they had done, for how they treated him. They both abused the father's generosity. They've both gone their own way. Anyone would have said, yeah, they deserve to be disowned or punished or worse. But Jesus tells the story and shows us a very different version of the father than that, doesn't he? So it begs this question. Why does Jesus give us a radically loving and pursuing Father? Why does he give us such a radical, different version of a Father than the ones that they actually deserved?
So